Anakin was standing in the center of the Jedi Council. All eyes were on him as had just informed the Council that he was to be the personal representative of Chancellor Palpatine on the Council. "Allow this appointment lightly, the Council does not," said Yoda. Anakin knew this would not go over well, but the Jedi could not do anything about it. He was officially on the Council, whether they liked it or not. "I understand," he said, and Mace Windu sat up to speak. "You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of Master," Mace said. A second felt like an eternity as Anakin stood there completely taken aback. He hadn't even considered this to be a possibility. On the council, but not a Master? How outrageous. How unfair, Anakin thought. All he wanted was access to the restricted section of the Jedi archives. He needed it to save his wife. He couldn't respond with rage in his scenario. Anakin stood there, thinking calmly. Maybe there was still a chance. "I understand, but Masters, being on this council is not something I take lightly. I want to learn as much as I can about the Jedi ways. I want to become a Master as quickly as I can." "You do not trust the Chancellor. I feel it. I will spy on him for the Council, in exchange for access to the restricted section of the archives," Anakin said, after a moment. And Mace and Yoda both looked taken aback but intrigued by this possibility. They were planning to have Anakin spy on Palpatine off the record, but now Anakin was offering the chance to do it, in exchange for the restricted archives, of course. "Accept this, the Council does," Yoda said. And finally, Anakin had unlocked all the knowledge the Jedi had on saving Padme. They didn't know exactly why Anakin wanted this access, but it didn't matter. He would report on the Chancellor because he got the only thing he'd ever wanted, a chance to save his wife. "Thank you, Masters," said Anakin, taking a seat as the meeting continued. Anakin waited impatiently for it to end, and once it finally did, Kenobi was sent to fight Grievous, Yoda to go to Kashyyyk, and Anakin bounded down the temple stairs to the archives. Kenobi was following him but could not keep up. Anakin was free from the war, and Kenobi was off to his mission with Grievous. He had all the time necessary to find the information he needed inside the archives. Once Anakin got to the room, it was clear he had a lot of studying ahead of him. He'd never been in the restricted section, but now, being in here, he could feel it. He could feel the answer was here. He had hope for the first time in a long time. Hope in the Jedi. If only he could find it now. He had to just look hard enough. And over the next several hours, Anakin studied everything he could, but there was nothing about stopping someone from dying. He began to grow frustrated, but he continued to look. Over in the Chancellor's office, Palpatine was almost prepared to reveal himself to Anakin. He began trying to sense where he was. He was nearly ready to reveal his true identity to him. When he was last with Anakin, he felt the boy full of turmoil and hidden anger with the Jedi. But as he tried to sense him now, after his radio silence after the council meeting, he reached out and felt nothing but hope with Anakin. Could the Jedi have given him what he wanted at the council meeting? Could Anakin have been made a master? No, they wouldn't trust him with that, Palpatine thought. Then what? Eventually, he clicked on his comlink to connect with Anakin and began to speak. "Anakin, how did your council meeting go? Are you able to return to my office soon?" Palpatine asked. Anakin responded, "They accepted my position, and I made a deal to gain access to the restricted archives. I can be there in a while. Is it an emergency?" Anakin asked. Palpatine hid his frustrations well. The Jedi likely didn't have anything to actually combat death, but Anakin could discover something. He could discover the powers to save Padme, the powers that Palpatine thought only he would be able to promise Anakin. Finally, Palpatine responded, "No emergency, just a check-in. We will talk soon." And he hung up, sinking into his chair. He had no choice but to wait. His plan was delayed. After searching through what Anakin thought was everything possible, he began to feel hopeless. Looking over, there was just one final archive, but this one Anakin avoided as it said it involved a dark side and a light side user. Alas, Anakin began curiously reading. and began reading faster, as this one contained some hope for Anakin. He read aloud, "If a Jedi holocron and a Sith holocron were opened together by a lightsider and a darksider, they would fuse and be able to answer any question the users desired." Anakin could not believe it. Here it was. The archives themselves couldn't answer his question, but they showed him a new way to get an answer. Combining 2 holocrons, light side user, dark side user, and suddenly Anakin regretted killing Dooku, a darksider. Grievous was evil, he thought, but not Force sensitive. Ventress was missing, and Sidious, whoever that was completely unknown. That left Maul, Anakin gasped, before immediately sending a message to Ahsoka over on Mandalore. "Ahsoka, is Maul with you? I need to speak with him." He received a reply from Ahsoka quickly saying, "Yes, Bo-Katan and I just captured him in a personal Jedi cell. We were about to leave Mandalore. What would you like for us to do?" Anakin responded, "Stay there. I'm on my way. Once I arrive, we can take off and I will talk with Maul on the ship." And Anakin began running to his personal ship, only one thing on his mind. He was going to convince Maul to open the holocron with him, and he would learn how to save Padme from death. As Anakin got into his ship, his comlink beeped, and Palpatine spoke once more. "Anakin, I need you in my office. Kenobi has engaged Grievous in battle, and I need you here to discuss our next move." "I'm sorry, Chancellor. You'll have to ask the Council. I'm on my own secret mission," and Anakin hung up before Palpatine could respond. He trusted Palpatine, but him traveling to Mandalore to negotiate with Maul was against the Jedi and the Republic. This had to be discreet. He punched in the hyperspace coordinates in and took off for Mandalore. Back in Palpatine's office, he spoke to Grievous, who had temporarily escaped Kenobi. "You must hide until I say, General. I cannot risk losing you at this point." And Grievous begrudgingly obliged. Palpatine knew once Grievous was destroyed, and he would be, the Jedi would be here to arrest him. He was supposed to have planted dark seeds in Anakin's mind, but he wasn't even on the planet anymore. More waiting it was, Palpatine thought. Anakin arrived on Mandalore and boarded the ship containing Ahsoka, half of the 501st, and Darth Maul. He explained to Ahsoka that Maul was to be questioned by him on the whereabouts of Sidious, and that this could not be done on Coruscant, where the dark side clouded the Jedi senses. Ahsoka was a bit skeptical, but Anakin seemed more determined than ever. It seemed like the war may truly be coming to an end, so she understood. And before Anakin walked to Maul, she said, "Anakin, wait. Maul was talking about you. He was nearly overwhelmed by the thought of you. He fears you, or needs you for some reason." Anakin looked at her confused, but he nodded. He didn't have much of a history with Maul, but perhaps this would help to get Maul to connect the holocrons together. Maul, meditating in his personal prison, felt a strong shift in the Force. His eyes shot wide open. The Chosen One was here, on this ship. Finally, he'd come to him instead of Sidious. But why? Why? And before Maul could come up with an answer, the door swung open, and there stood Anakin Skywalker. Maul watched Anakin walk in and shut the door behind him, a look of determination across his face. Anakin held both his blue saber and Maul's red saber in his hands, and with one swift motion, he unlocked Maul's prison, and Maul fell to the ground. Skywalker. Maul had planned to kill him earlier, but was now in no position to do so. Instead, he would just have to tell Anakin about Sidious. "I need to," but suddenly Maul was being lifted into the air by his throat. Anakin was choking him. "I don't have time for any games, Maul. Listen to me carefully. I have a Jedi holocron and a Sith holocron from the Jedi archives. You are going to help me connect them, and it will grant us each one answer to any question we desire." Anakin ignited his blue lightsaber and pointed it at Maul. "Do you understand me?" Maul nodded and was released. Out of breath, he said, I can tell you everything about the Sith." "You do this," Anakin responded, "and then tell me about the Sith, and I will let you go free." "I understand," said Maul. "Let's get to it then, shall we?" And the two sat down. lifting the holocrons into the air, and as they sat there meditating, the holocrons fused, and both were able to ask a question after some time. Anakin looked into the holocron. How can I save Padme from dying in childbirth, he thought, and a vision began to appear. In this vision, Anakin knelt before a mysterious figure, and then Anakin saw himself marching into the Jedi Temple, cutting down longtime friends. And then Anakin was on a fire planet, Kenobi across from him, and now he saw himself choking Padme in the air from his own hand. A voice spoke to Anakin, Save yourself from the darkness, and Padme will be saved from death. Maul had many questions, but simply couldn't help himself from the main one. Where is Obi-Wan Kenobi? And he saw Utapau. Finally, the fuse snapped, and the two were left alone in the cell. Anakin was shaken after having a vision of himself falling to the dark side and killing Padme. How could that be? Who could have manipulated him to that point? Then he remembered what Maul said. Once again, igniting his saber toward Maul, he said, For your freedom, who is this Sith Lord? Maul began to laugh in a quiet, creepy manner before saying, He's been right in front of you, treating you like puppets, Jedi fool. Chancellor Palpatine, or should I say, Darth Sidious, has been controlling the entire war, and not even the Chosen One could see it, Maul said mockingly. That's impossible. The Chancellor is a good man. He's been like a father to me. I wonder why that is, you foolish Jedi. You are blind. You are nothing but a pawn for him, Maul yelled, and he pulled his own red lightsaber towards him, and as he ignited it, Anakin once again quickly choked him into the air and held him for a moment, studying his face. Maul was telling the truth, and with a sudden snap, Anakin broke his neck and Maul fell to the ground. He was clearly weakened from the chamber, and then using all of his strength on the holocron. He'd tried a desperate move on Anakin, but Anakin was not having it today. He walked out of the cell. Ahsoka was nearby, and before she could say anything, Anakin told her, He made a move on me. I had no choice, but I got what I needed. Now back to Palpatine in his office. He was just informed that Obi-Wan killed General Grievous. He's then informed that Anakin went to Mandalore and killed Maul. He knew Grievous would fall, but why? Why would Anakin? What would he want to do with Maul, Palpatine thought. But then it became obvious. He did the two holocron fuse, and clearly he asked how to end the war, how to stop Sidious, and he clearly would have his identity revealed to Anakin. The Jedi would be here shortly, but perhaps it wasn't too late to turn him. He must have asked the holocron who Sidious was, but Palpatine thought perhaps he would be able to tell him how he could save Padme, the final hope in a failing plan. Palpatine thought he was the only one who could teach him how to save Padme. Or perhaps Palpatine could just execute Order 66 right now. No, he thought to himself. Now, turning Anakin was his life's work. He could not give up on that yet. Anakin landed and immediately went to Mace and a few other Jedi. He explained what had happened and how he knows about Palpatine. Mace is at first a bit frustrated that Anakin went off on his own, but he is impressed that he found out who Sidious was, and was also impressed with his restraint after not being a master. He was impressed with Anakin's demeanor of late. We will gather a small Jedi team, Skywalker. Together we will arrest or kill this Dark Lord of the Sith. Mace, Anakin, Kit Fisto, Sazy Tin, and Agent Kolar would then go to Palpatine's office. They walk in the door, seeing Palpatine turn around. Ah, Master Jedi, and my representative Anakin. How may I be of service? Palpatine asked, but he knew what was about to go down. Mace Windu ignited his lightsaber along with the other Jedi. In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you are under arrest, Mace said, and the Jedi had a look of determination, like they knew this was the end of the war. So they knew, Anakin knew, and Palpatine, unfortunately, did not sense any conflict within him, only will to end this. Perhaps, Anakin, you are in need of a lesson of the true power of the dark side, Palpatine said, looking at him before launching at all the Jedi with a ferocious yell. Just like in the Revenge of the Sith movie, Palpatine would kill all the Jedi except for Mace and Anakin in this scenario. The battle would play out very similarly, with Palpatine taking them out, but in this one, he would have 2 sabers, as he knew this would be no small task to take out Windu and Skywalker. So the battle would play on the red sabers clashing against blue and purple, furious speed like never before seen, and eventually, as the battle raged on, Palpatine would push Mace away near the window, and he had Anakin alone. The sabers would clash, Palpatine more powerful than Anakin could have ever thought, but Anakin more focused than he'd ever been. He knew what he had to do. He knew staying away from the darkness was the key to saving Padme. "I trusted you more than I trusted anyone, and all because you wanted me to join you," Anakin yelled. "Anakin, the dark side of the Force is your only path to a happy life for you and your family." But in the end, it's Mace reappearing and sending Palpatine cowering into the window. Anakin and Mace now were holding Palpatine together at the window, sabers to his neck. "Anakin, please. I have the power to save the one you love," Palpatine said in desperation. He had not thrown this fight. The 2 very powerful Jedi Masters, or in Anakin's case, soon-to-be Jedi Master, had overthrown Palpatine truly in a fair fight. Palpatine was powerful, but Mace was one of the best duelists, and Anakin was truly the chosen one. Palpatine had spent his life's work trying to turn Anakin, knowing he would make an excellent Sith, but something had convinced him that he had to stay in the light. Anakin looked at him. "Liar! You would only turn her against me. The holocrons, I'd fused them with Maul, and they revealed in order to save Padme, I must save myself from the darkness." Mace looked confused, but he would deal with this later. Palpatine had realized what had happened. Maul, willingly, had revealed his identity to Anakin, and Anakin had only asked the holocron about Padme. Of course, it's all he ever cared about, Palpatine thought. How could I be so foolish to think the boy would not be so short-sighted? Palpatine thought before Anakin stood and watched. As Mace reached his saber up, the rage inside Palpatine was building like never before, and with a loud scream, he shot lightning out of both of his hands, throwing the Chosen One against the wall behind him, and nearly knocking him unconscious while Mace held his saber against the other hand. Electricity was still blasting out of both hands, and Anakin was dazed, but feeling the lightning brought him back to his senses, albeit he could barely move as he writhed in pain. He had to break free. Padme, he thought, and in a desperate move, he threw his blue lightsaber at Mace, who caught it with his opposite hand, and he then cut down Palpatine with it. The lightning stopped. The shroud of darkness that seemed to live all around them began to fade. The war was over. Anakin looked up to see the hand of Mace Windu, offering to help Anakin, and the 2 got up, and together they walked away. Over the next handful of weeks, the Republic was a mess. Their leader, the Chancellor, had died, and it was revealed by the Jedi that he was an evil Sith Lord plotting the war from both sides. They didn't have a ton of ways to prove this, but it took a lot of convincing, and they had proof. They had ultimate proof that he was in control of the Separatists. In a council meeting, Anakin announced to the Jedi when Mace brought up Padme and what Palpatine said about his love. Anakin decided he told the Jedi that he was leaving the Jedi Order, for now at least, and Padme had left politics as they had decided to go raise their children on Naboo. The war had taken a mean toll on them both, and they had to get away, at least for now. They could not subject their kids to this type of life. But the Jedi had actually requested that the children's training began early. It was something they would have to figure out, but soon after they arrived on Naboo, Padme had both of her children, and she lived through it. Anakin, in the light, if he had not fused that holocron, it would have brought him a very, very different day. Without the restricted archives, without that holocron, where would he be today? He didn't even want to consider it. Alright folks, that is the end of today's fan fiction. I hope you liked it. It was a different twist on What if Anakin was granted Master? I think he really just wanted access to the archive, so hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Please do consider subscribing. It helps a ton, so thank you if you do. That would be amazing. And if you don't, thank you for watching anyway. Please do leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what else you'd like to see. And of course, I'll see you in the next video.